I love him. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same.
Experience the greatest love story of all time.
Why did you leave me?
Why did you betray your own heart?
A film by Emerald Fennell.
Heathcliff.
Kathy.
Margot Robbie, Jacob Elordi.
Kiss me and let us both be damned.
Wuthering Heights. Original songs by Charlie XCX. Only in theaters tomorrow. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parent.
J. Cole, The Fall Off, album review. Let's talk about it. How y'all doing? Welcome to Let's Talk About It Music Reviews Season 12. How y'all doing? Welcome to the show. Guys, we got a pretty good episode. All of the coverage we've done throughout the whole entire week, the whole entire weekend from before. We've been talking about J. Cole for a long-ass time at this point. I think I've done like 5 or 6 episodes. It's finally time to sit down and do this album review. I did just get done listening to this album. I had a really good time, just kind of sitting down, kind of reflecting. Needed a few days to reflect on my album listening experience. But now I'm finally here. I'm ready to talk about this fucking album. We got J. Cole, The Fall Off. Now, going into the history, I've been really looking forward to this album for a long-ass time. I mean, ever since I started, listening to J. Cole's music, listening to the Dreamville and all the different artists and stuff like that. One of the big things that was promoted throughout those years, throughout, like 5 or 6 or whatever years, was The Fall Off. That was being promoted for a long-ass time. I've been waiting for that album. As this whole, diss happened, this whole, diss battle happened, etc., you had all these artists battling, you had Drake, you had Kendrick, you even had J. Cole. Only J. Cole was in the forefront for just a little bit. Dropped the whole ass album, might delete later, and then just kind of dipped out, deleted his diss track. And, then J. Cole kind of went silent. I think the only thing that actually came out is when he did that weird song called, Grippy. And that was the only time I heard J. Cole, in the recent times. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? What are we doing? What is going on in the music? But now it's come full circle. J. Cole says, he's been to the bottom. Now he's going to the top. Now he loves, being, kind of counted out. And that's how kind of J. Cole's newer, in the recent years, his career's kind of been kind of counted out, kind of, being the one who apologized to Kendrick Lamar and just kind of called it a goddamn day. Now, this album is a double disc and it's a whole multi-story. Starting off, being in your 20s, going through your 20s is the first disc, and then the second disc is, later in life, 30s, after you made it, after you've done everything, and the fall off has officially happened. Now, we all know the fall off's going to happen for anybody, anybody's walk of life, whether you reach the top, and then you just kind of fall down slowly, or, something happens and you go through something, and, the fall off is inevitable, it is going to happen, it is going to, actually happen to you. So to have this, kind of be the storyline, it's a pretty interesting storyline. Now, I'm not in the age, where this album can really hit me. I'm not like almost 40 years old now. I'm looking back on all my life. I'm not in that, moment. I'd say I'm more in kind of aligned with, the Diss 1, type of, content here. But before we get into this album, let's explain how I do my album reviews. It might have been a while since you reviewed an episode, or you're new here. So let's just go over how I do this. We're going to go over 3 overall points of how I felt about the album. And then after that, we're going to dive in and review every single track off the album. We're going to rate it 1 out of 5. And then at the very end, I'm going to give you my overall thoughts. And then we're going to give you my final score at the very end. So that's how I do my album reviews. Let's stop, just, talking, and let's actually get into this fucking album review. It's been a goddamn minute since I've reviewed some J. Cole. And let's start off with my first point. Starting off with my first point, I will say the production of this album is just kind of, it's on the level of boom bap / there is moments of, the beats and the instrumentals actually do pick up. And then there's actually moments where there's kind of that blues guitar type instrumental that's, laced on here. I'd say the production is pretty good. There's some moments where, beats might stall out, beats might not sound the best, but I'll say overall for a good hip-hop kind of boom-bap production, definitely higher tier, definitely some good shit right here. I'd rather listen to this than listen to any of, like West Side Gun, or like, any of like Benny the Butcher, or any of like Freddie Gibbs. All these other rappers that do this type of style. There's definitely a difference when, an artist actually, can use these instrumentals, can actually, make them sound good, make them actually sound like they fit their voices. I overall like the production.
I didn't think the pain from the shingles rash would affect simple, everyday tasks like bathing, getting dressed, or even walking around. I was wrong. Though not everyone at risk will develop it, 99% of people over the age of 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time. I developed it, and the blistering rash lasted for weeks. Don't learn the hard way, like I did. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
Now, my next point is the features. Now, I try to enjoy the features on here. I didn't really like him that much. Burna Boy was good, but that's kind of it. Future sounded terrible on a couple of these songs, and I just was kind of left like, alright, if we're going to have features on the album, why are we doing Future, Burna Boy, and maybe another feature that just doesn't sound that good? It doesn't make that much sense to me. And then my third point, my final point, simply, I'd say J. Cole's rapping ability on here is some of the best that I've definitely heard. I've really tried to enjoy, J. Cole's rapping in the past, with, Might Delete Later. And I thought Might Delete Later, overall didn't sound that good. But this right here, though, the way he's flowing on these beats, the way the flow switches come in, all the different rap vocals, too, just overall sound pretty fucking fantastic. Let's go over every single track off this album. We're going to rate it 1 out of 5. We actually have 24 songs. This album's an hour and 41 minutes. There's some tracks on here that go on for like 6 minutes long, so it's kind of like a Drake album. Let's get into it, starting off with the intro track, Diss 29 intro. I'd say 29 intro is a nice starting point. It kind of feels like a movie. Feels like a movie setup. It's really cool. Now, is this a good intro individually? Would I put this intro on, in my free time? Would I listen to it? No. This is not one of those intros that you can kind of put on, on your own. You have to listen to this intro and get into the album. So I'd overall just give this a 3 out of 5. 2-6, though, is the next track, and 2-6 is a really good track. I like the hook. I like the beat on here. I like all the different rapping on here. The flow switches are absolutely fantastic. I'd easily give this one a 4 out of 5. Safety is the next track, and Safety, I'd say, is a pretty nice track. I like the instrumental, I like the boom bap beat. This one's pretty good. The rapping's nice. The story, I'd easily give this one a 3 out of 5. Run a Train featuring Future. The feature is so terrible on this song. The hook is so bad. I can't give this song that much praise, but J. Cole's rapping on here is pretty fucking good. I'd probably just give this like a 2 out of 5. Next track is called Poor Thing. Poor Thing actually has a really nice hook to it, and I really like the rapping style, so I'd easily give it a 4 out of 5. Legacy, this is featuring PJ. I don't know who PJ is. The feature wasn't that good at all on here. Legacy was pretty alright. I didn't really enjoy the beat that much. I didn't enjoy the rapping that much. I'd probably just give it a 2 out of 5. Bounce Road Blues. This is featuring Future and Tim's. Now, Tim's completely carried. J. Cole singing wasn't that good. And then Future, he didn't sound really good here. He also, barely even had a fucking part on here. So, Tim's carried this song. I'd easily give it a 3 out of 5. The next track is Who the Fuck Is You? Who the Fuck Is You is a really nice track. I like the beat switch on here. I think the beat switch makes this track even fucking better. But all the different rapping on here, the flow switches, truly exceptional. One of my favorite tracks off this album. Easily a 5 out of 5. Drum and bass. Drum and bass is okay. It gets the job done. But again, it's one of these singing tracks from J. Cole. That's kind of my problem with this whole entire album is J. Cole sings way too fucking much on this album. This track's okay, 2 out of 5. The Let Out. The Let Out's a nice track, you know, I like it. You know, it has a cool story to it, you know, everybody getting let out, etc., you know, getting away from a club, you know, from getting shot up. It's a cool story, I like the storyline, but, you know, that's just kind of it. I'd easily just give it a 3 out of 5. Bombs in the Villa. Bombs in the Villa is a pretty good track. You know, I like the kind of thunder, like, effects that this beat has. I like it. I'd easily give it a 3 out of 5. And then my favorite track right here is number 12, the last one for the first disc, which is Lonely at the Top. I'd say Lonely at the Top is a really nice track. I love the hook. I love the different flows, the different rapping that it sounds. This track, the storyline, you know, talking about the younger generation kind of coming through, and they will come through and kind of take over. I really like this track. This one's an easy 5 out of 5.